Okay. Does it look like I've been working all day? Probably. Hello, this is Sydney. Welcome to my channel. Most of the time my channel focuses on doing art, but I also want to share my love for books. So today I'm starting off with the BookTube Newbie Tag questions, and I have the questions here on my iPad. So let's get started. Number one, why did you start this channel? I started this channel, first of all, to share my passion for art, but I also knew that I wanted to share my passion with books. Once I started to see what booktubers were doing, I was like, wow, there are people out there that love books. So I also wanted to share my passion with book and give my side of the story and just make, be part of the community. Number two, what are some fun and unique things that you can bring to BookTube? I would like to bring that perspective of art and books. I really like both of these a lot. So I would like to show books that are not only just like what everybody's reading, but also look at books as a type of art form in and of itself, be it a beautiful book or a beautiful written book, all the way to like art books. I would love to do flip throughs, and I also would just love to show my collection of books. I like the artsy side of books. Number three, what are you most excited for about this new channel? Well, it's not necessarily a new channel, but I'm most excited about sharing my passion about books and art. Kind of like I already said, I just want to share and talk to people and find people who like art and like books at the same time. Number four, why do you love reading? I love to read because I love to escape into these beautiful worlds. So I really like reading fantasy, and I love using my imagination and just falling for these beautiful worlds. And then I also love reading because I like to learn new facts about the world. So I think that's kind of funny, right? Like I like to escape from the world, but then I also want to learn about the world more. So I do have a big love for nonfiction too. I haven't been reading it this year much at all, but that's why I love reading. I just love learning new things, and I also love escaping and just falling into someone else's mind or world, especially if it's fantasy. That's my favorite. Number five, what book or series got you into reading? You'll be surprised. Most people will look at me and think, okay, she's about that age, it's gotta be Harry Potter. Actually, no, it wasn't. I remember what got me hooked on reading, and I've been hooked since, is Little House on the Prairie, which is a big surprise to most people. I loved Little House on the Prairie. I remember I got this book from the library, never heard of it before, and I got the illustrated like fancy edition, and it was like got colored illustrations. So it was a beautiful book, and I just fell in love with this story of a girl telling her story, and it was true too, of living out on the prairie with her pa and her mom. I still to this day am fascinated with how people lived in the past, more so than historical events. So I feel like this is quite normal for me. I've learned that's why I love Little House on the Prairie so much. I was also fascinated with American Girl books and the dolls, just because they were also historical books written about everyday life. So that is what got me hooked in reading. I was about 10 years old and third grade, Little House on the Prairie series. What questions would you ask your favorite booktuber? I think I would ask them, how do they balance reading so much, remembering what they read, and then editing the videos, etc., and keeping up with all that. It's got to be a lot. I'm afraid, I guess, of being able to remember what books are about. I usually just remember the feelings. I can't remember the names, but definitely have to do some backtracking anytime I talk about a book in great detail. Also, I have a question. I wonder if any booktubers had any problems with reading or spelling or writing as a kid. I really had a hard time with spelling, so I find it odd that I couldn't spell at all as a kid, and I'm a horrible speller, but I can read very well and easily. So just wonder if anyone else has that problem. Let's see, what question are we on? Number 7. What challenges do you think starting a BookTube channel will be hardest to overcome? Like I said, remembering what I read, staying on a schedule, and keeping that balance of like reading and editing videos. I really don't want this to bog me down and make me hate reading, so I do want to keep that passion alive, and if I need to sacrifice putting out videos in order to find my balance in life more, I know I'll have to sacrifice that, but I think that's going to be the hardest challenge, and just being more confident in myself and being ready to share my passion for reading. Okay, number 8. When did you start reading? Well, I know I was reading when I was young. I would say my passion for reading came in 3rd grade after Little House on the Prairie. From then on, I've had a book in my life at all times, except when I get super stressed do I put books down and I actually stop reading physically. And then I know once my life feels better, I always pick up a book again. Like, it just never stops. I never lost this passion for reading. I'm definitely reading more now than ever because of audiobooks and other ways to access books, and I'm prioritizing it. But I started reading like whenever they taught me in school, but I guess the passion started when I was in 3rd grade, around 10 years old. So number 9, where do you read? I read everywhere. I have like a little morning chairs right over there where I read in the morning, and I like to read there anytime I feel like, I guess. I also like to read in bed before falling asleep. I feel it's a good, relaxing way to fall asleep. I'll read outside if it's pleasant outside. As a kid, I used to read a lot in the car. I actually taught myself how to read in the car without being sick, and I would read for 45 minutes one way and then 45 minutes the other way because I lived really far from school. So that was how I started reading so much as a kid. Now I listen to books when I'm driving. What kind of books do you like to read? Oh my goodness, I love almost anything. A good book in almost any genre is worth it. So my favorites to read are fiction, specifically fantasy. I love fantasy. I will read fantasy for kids, middle grade, and YA, and I also read for adults, so anything fantasy is my jam. I also like to read mystery. I was a big fan of Agatha Christie. She has taught me well. So I love mystery, I love thrillers, but I don't read them as much. I really crave that fantasy type of book, but I will read a thriller here and there. Love mystery. I love it when books put mysteries within the story. So like having a fantasy book and then there's like a little bit of a mystery. Ooh, so lovely. I also like to read nonfiction. Biographies are wonderful, and just anything that sounds interesting or sparks some kind of interest, I will usually pick up just to see if I can read it. I'll read graphic novels as well. I'm a big fan of graphic novels. I'll pick those up and read them. I also love reading specifically French comics. I'm not very proficient in French, but I have a very elementary base level of French, and so I'll pick these up and try to read them. And I have a very small collection of French books as well. What does your book collection look like? So I guess I'll give you a quick little tour. For example, here's some books behind me. This is a lot of nonfiction books. This is actually a dining room that I have made into a library. So the books are actually on the wall. And they're not in very pretty. They're not very pretty shape, so I apologize. But I'll show you what my books look like. What my books look like. So here are some of my books that are nonfiction. There's also some books from my husband in here. And if we go over here, this is like a book of a stack of books that are just something I picked up free, and I'm just trying to get through them eventually. And this is like more of my artsy books. Yep. Then over here, this is my reading nook, and this is the like fiction books. And most of these up here are my husband's. So he likes to read a lot of sci-fi, and I'm more of a fantasy girl. And like I said, I don't keep a huge collection of books because I often read them and then I take them to a used bookstore, and I usually buy used books. That's it. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope to see you around soon. And yeah, I just want to share my passion about books. We'll have a book party. Be like a book club. Book party.